In 2017, a man in Ohio reported seeing a large, black creature with glowing eyes and wolf-like head in a wooded area. According to the man, the creature was about 7 feet tall and had a long snout and a bushy tail. He said the creature was running on 2 legs and it seemed to be looking for something. He said that he was so scared that he immediately ran back to his car. The man reported his sighting to the local police, but they were unable to find any evidence of the creature. It remains a mystery as to what the creature was and what it was looking for. It was looking for a chew toy. Some believe it may have been a Dogman, while others think it might have been a large wild animal, like a bear or a wolf. Whatever it was, the sighting remains unexplained to this day. Welcome to the mysterious world of the Dogman. For centuries, this creature has been shrouded in mystery, with tales of its existence spread throughout the world. The Dogman has been sighted in at least 39 different states, so damn near all over. But what is the Dogman? Is it a myth or is it real? In this video, we'll explore the truth behind the creature and investigate the stories and sightings that have made it so cryptic and intriguing. We'll look at the history of the Dogman. We'll explore the various descriptions of this creature and examine the theories behind its existence. Finally, we'll look at the impact the Dogman has had on our culture. From books to movies, the Dogman has become a huge part of our popular culture. So join me on this adventure as I investigate the notorious Dogman. Are you brave enough to uncover the truth? It's time to take a closer look at this arcane creature and find out what lies behind the legend of the Dogman. Buckle up, this one's going to be a wild one. The Dogman is a mystifying creature that has been described as a mix between a dog and a man. It's said to have a wolf-like head and glowing yellow eyes. It stands at an estimated 7 feet tall. It's about 4 feet tall at the shoulder when on all fours. It's commonly described as very muscular and weighing between 400 and 500 pounds. So the same weight as a rhino or a polar bear. Some reports portray it as entirely covered by hair, while others claim it to be a man with a wolf's head. It's an elusive creature, but sightings of it have been reported in many parts of the United States. The creature has been described in a variety of ways, from a large black creature with glowing eyes to a humanoid figure with dog-like features. Most reports describe it as being able to run on its back 2 legs, and some even say it's capable of speech. Ooh, like the big bad wolf. The origin of the Dogman legend is largely unknown, but it's believed to have been around for centuries. Tales of its existence have been spread throughout the world. The story of Alexander the Great fighting the cynocephali dates back to the 5th century BC and is said to be one of the earliest recorded accounts of the Dogman. It tells the tale of Alexander the Great leading a group of soldiers against a band of strange creatures known as the cynocephali. The cynocephali were described as having the bodies of men and the heads of dogs, and they were said to be fierce warriors. Plus, I'm sure the sight of armed, dog-headed soldiers didn't help morale much. According to the story, Alexander and his men fought bravely against the powerful creatures and were eventually able to defeat them. They had to put muzzles on them. Much later, in the 4th century AD, Saint Christopher, the patron saint of travelers, is said to have been a dog-headed man. According to legend, he was Canaanite and a giant of a man, about 7.5 feet tall, who was said to have the head of a dog. According to the lore, one day he was asked by a small child to carry him across the river. During the crossing, the river became swollen and the child seemed as heavy as lead, so much that Christopher could scarcely carry him and found himself in great difficulty. Exhausted, when he finally reached the other side, he said to the child, "You have put me in the greatest danger. I do not think the whole world could have been as heavy on my shoulders as you were." The child replied, "You had on your shoulders not only the whole world, but him who made it. I am Christ, your King, whom you are serving by this work." The child then mysteriously vanished. Christopher later converted to Christianity and became a martyr. In some religious art, St. Christopher is depicted with the head of a dog, and this has led to him being linked to the Dogman. It is said that the Dogman was sent to protect travelers from harm, and it is believed that St. Christopher is the representation of this guardian spirit. Now, that's something they don't teach you in Sunday school. The Andaman Islands were said to be inhabited by wolf-headed people. The Andaman Islands are a group of roughly 300 islands located in the southeastern part of the Bay of Bengal. These islands were said to have been inhabited by a primitive tribe called the Jarawas, who were believed to be wolf-headed people. They were a hunter-gatherer society who lived off the land and were known to be very aggressive and hostile towards outsiders. The Jarawas lived in relative isolation until the late 18th and early 19th centuries, when the British began to colonize the islands. The Jarawas were eventually forced off the land and relocated to reservations, with plenty of McDonald's and Walmarts, I'm sure. Today, the Jarawas are a dwindling population, and their traditional lifestyle is threatened by deforestation and other environmental issues. In August of 1962, Gene and his girlfriend Amy were driving down a remote back road late one evening. She was driving and Gene was in the passenger seat. They had just come around a curve when two does jumped out into the road in front of them. The frightened animals act like they weren't even there. They seemed to be focused on something else. Amy slammed on the brakes and brought the car to a screeching stop. Gene told her, "Man, that was close." That's when he looked up into the rearview mirror to see if any more deer were coming out. When he did, in the eerie red glow of the car's taillights, he saw something take a big step from the brush that was on the side of the road. Looking at it in the rearview mirror, he could only see it from its mid-thigh to its stomach. It's either really close or they've got a very small rearview mirror. In one motion, it then took another step forward and put what looked to be a hairy, clawed hand down on the trunk of the car. Oh shit, it's closed. When he saw it, he turned to look at Amy. She was wide-eyed. Her mouth was wide open. And she was white as a ghost. Gene noticed that her eyes were tearing up. By the time he had looked back again, it had already gone across the road. In an attempt to get a better look at this thing, Gene opened the door and got out of the car. What? When he looked, he could see that it was just going down the embankment on the side of the road. Because of the tall bushes, he could only see it from the armpits up. It was at least 7 feet tall and had very wide shoulders. Its shoulders were at least 1.5 times as wide as his shoulders, and he was a pretty big guy. From the quickly dimming of daylight left, he could see that it was black or dark brown in color, and had pointed ears on top of its head, like a dog. Its head was kind of dome-shaped with flat sides. It acted like they weren't even there and seemed to remain focused on the deer. Dude, you don't want to get mixed up in that buffet. Gene thought, what in the world is this thing? He said that it looked like some kind of a werewolf or wolfman. It was way too big to be a person. Through that whole ordeal, he never did get a chance to see its face. On that same road, people have reported being chased in their vehicles by creatures that look exactly like what they saw. Dogs always chase cars. It must be inherited. On October 1972, Pam, her husband, their 2 babies, and her brother left Leavenworth, Kansas in their 1968 VW van on a camping trip to a recreational area in Arkansas called Beaver Lake. When they finally got there, they found a fairly remote campsite at the far end of the park. They wanted to be alone as the babies woke often during the night and needed to feed. They didn't want to disturb any other campers. Plus, folks might think the park is haunted or something, with babies crying in the background. Shortly after pulling into the campsite, her brother pitched his tent next to the van. The rest were going to sleep in the van. Because of the mature trees and thick brush, daylight had trouble poking into their spot. Hey, when you're camping, that's actually a good thing. Fast forward to the nighttime. Sometime around 3:30 a.m., she heard some animal sounds on the ridge that she thought were being made by coyotes. Their babies were asleep, and all was quiet otherwise. She peered out the window, but couldn't see what was making the sounds, because it was so dark. Still hearing odd yips and howls, she laid back down on the back seat. Moments later, there was a huge crashing bang on the van wall right next to her head. Her husband leapt up out of a deep sleep. Her brother bolted out of his tent and jumped into the van. They were all in a panic, looking in every different direction, trying to see what had just hit the van like that. Look! Her brother finally yelled that he saw something moving behind the van. They all turned just in time to see a large shadow moving about 20 feet behind the van, from left to right. Shh! You guys are going to wake up the babies. After about 20 minutes passed, without seeing any movement, her husband and brother went out to inspect the van for damage, but found none. I think I would have waited at least until daylight. They then started hearing pounding steps coming from the brush about 50 feet behind. The guys eased back into the front seat of the van. Eased? That's when her husband turned on the headlights and stepped on the brake pedal for rear light. Instantly, there was a huge commotion. He started the engine, and that's when, in the glow of the headlights, they could see a hairy thing 10 feet away and coming towards the van. Did anybody bring a gun? As it got closer, its silver-tipped hairs glistened in the light. It had a grayish streak from its shoulders down its back to its buttocks. The creature was walking on two legs and was around 7 to 8 feet tall and had a barrel chest and skinny legs. It must have skipped leg day. They never got a good view of its eyes. She could see that the face was not ape-like. It was dog-like. Its ears had tufts of fur on top of them, and it was very human-like in its movements and general body structure. It moved smoothly and quickly around to the back of the van, where it followed the base of the ridge away from them. Base of the ridge. That's when it let out a menacing huff and a low rumbling growl like a dog. Insanely, her husband and brother bolted from the van, trying to get a better look. I think that's more stupid than insane. That's when a shower of gravel rained on them. Her husband and brother tore back into the van and burned up the road, getting them out of there. She kept looking out the back window, and they looked in the rearview mirrors. But none of them ever saw it again. She still has PTSD to this day due to that encounter. She's going to need some good meds. In 1986, a Kentucky man was driving home after work. He worked about 30 miles away from where he lived. That sucks. Gas. He had been stuck in heavy traffic and really had to go take a piss. He kept telling himself that he was almost home and tried to hold it until he got there. By the time he got to his exit, he knew he wasn't going to make it to his house. So he pulled into an area that was isolated. We've all been there, ain't we? The area was heavily wooded with walking trails and a lot of game, but it was also in a very populated area. He pulled up to a narrow side drive off the main road. On the left side, there was a guardrail and a view of the valley below. The place was dark at night because there were intermittent street lights. When he stopped, he got out of his car, waited a moment, and looked around to make sure there were no cars coming. It was in the winter, so the bushes between where he was and the road below him didn't have any leaves on them, so you could see right through them. I wouldn't worry about it, shrinkage and all. He went to the back of his car and did what he had to do. When he finished, he zipped up, and all at once, every hair on his body stood up. I've had good pisses like that. He knew he wasn't alone. He scanned the area in front of him. Then he heard something behind him. He turned around and there were 3 deer standing there, all huddled together between his car and the guardrail. They weren't looking at him. They were looking across the road. He looked where they were looking and saw a figure standing between the bushes in front of it and the tree behind it. It was huge. He stands at 5 feet 5 inches. He's a little fella. The bushes were about 6 feet tall. However, they only came up to the collarbone area on this thing. Due to the street light to the right of it, about 20 feet away, he was able to get a pretty clean outline of the monster. It had a large dog-shaped head and pointed ears. He couldn't make out its neck, but he could make out massive shoulders. That's when it growled. It was a deep vibration he could feel in his chest. His body took over at that point. He trains dogs, mainly German Shepherds. Sometimes he has to establish who the alpha is. And to do that, he gets them down, holds them in place, grabs them by their ear, and growls until they submit. It sounds like foreplay to me. Then the training can start. So, when this thing growled at him, it was just pure instinct. He dropped down to a crouching position and growled right back at it. This dude's got some sack. When he did that, it stopped growling and started sniffing the air. Its snout went up and it turned its head slightly as it was sniffing. It then took a few steps forward. He was still crouched down on all fours and moved forward, still growling at the thing. He stood up and kept staring right at it. He never broke eye contact with it. Then it slowly stepped back into the tree line and started to move to the right of him. Oh, dude, be careful, bro. The deer were still behind him. They were so close, he could have reached out and touched them. He waved his arms and told them to get out of here. When he did that, they jumped back over the guardrail and took off down the hill. That's when he jumped in his car and got the hell out of there as fast as he could. He felt this thing was trying to circle behind him, and he wasn't going to wait around for that. Yep, it was fixing to flank him. Does he think he scared it? Absolutely not. But he does think he confused it for a couple of minutes, and that gave him time to escape. He told his wife about what had happened, but he didn't tell her exactly what he saw. Probably a good idea. She would think he was nuts, and to be honest, he thought he was a little crazy himself until he saw a picture of a Dogman. I think his response to it was crazy. He knows there are other things in this world that can't be explained. He's seen them. But this was way, way beyond any of those things. The wildlife up there has almost totally disappeared. The street he lives on is only about a mile or so down the hill from this place, and lately he has seen coyotes on the streets, like they've been chased out. and pets have started to go missing. That ain't good. That's either a predator or an asshole neighbor. Folks have seen a large black figure moving through their backyards. He's concerned that it has come down the hill after eating everything up there. Your cat can't be an outside cat anymore. More recently, in November of 2022, in Mackinac County, Michigan, Sam shared his terrifying experience with the dangerous creature. Normally, I carry a 10mm handgun on my belt wherever I go. On this day, I was heading to my doctor's office for lab work, so I didn't put my firearm in my holster on my belt, but I did bring it in my truck. Due to road construction, I was taking a back road to town. As I turned down that road, I noticed something about a half-mile up the road in a field on the other side. It looked like a canine. As I approached the area, I slowed down to have a look. Standing in this field was the largest wolf I have ever seen. There are 2 different packs of wolves that run the areas between where I live and the town where my doctor's office is. I'm very familiar with the wolves, so much so that me being curious about it is an anomaly itself. But I was so curious about this huge wolf that I just had to stop to get a picture with my phone. What the hell is wrong with these people? Everyone, please understand that for some reason I'm not in my right mind at this point. Yeah, no shit. I'm never curious about wolves, even huge wolves, and I would not leave my truck to get a picture. Yet, here I find myself grabbing my phone, shutting off my truck, and walking out into the field to get a picture. I cannot describe what was going on in my head at that moment. All I knew is that I needed to get a picture up close. He was hoping to go viral. The wolf crept behind this huge set of bushes. I couldn't see through them at all. So I veered to my right to circle the bushes to get my picture. As I came around the bushes, I came face to face with this wolf. It's about 5 or 6 feet away from me. That's way too fucking close, dude. I stopped moving, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm hearing the words, "Get the picture." As I raise my phone, the wolf growls, and somehow I feel like I understood the growl. It was a warning growl, telling me I needed to back off. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and I snapped out of whatever was going on. Shoving the phone back in my pocket, I say very loudly, "If you want to get hostile with me, buddy, then I have a little something for you." Here we go. I reach for my pistol, which is always on my side. I grab air. I run my hand along my belt, looking for it. My eyes aren't leaving the huge monster. It's not there. Then it occurs to me, I didn't put it on my belt because I was driving to a gun-free zone to have lab work done. It's in my truck. That's when he knew he fucked up. Purposefully, I turn and walk to my truck. My adrenaline is racing. My instincts are screaming at me to run as fast as I can. But my brain is telling me that this wolf is much bigger than I am. I'm 6'4", 300 plus pounds. Not the most fit, but definitely strong enough to contend with a normal wolf in a pinch. However, This thing made me feel small. I know that running will trigger that predatory instinct. If I run, I won't make it to my truck. Shit, you won't make it 10 feet, dude. I reach my truck and grab the handle. Casting a glance over my shoulder, I see the wolf standing with its back legs on the gravel right across the road from me. I also noticed that it hadn't let me get further away than that particular distance. It's stalking you. I hopped into my truck, slammed the door, and reached down under my center console for my pistol. As I draw it from the holster, I can see a huge nose in the corner of my eye, about the center of my driver's side window. I also realized that I had never chambered a round into that firearm that morning. The full weight of my stupidity hit me in that moment as I racked around into the chamber. I glanced out the window and got a sense that this wolf was smiling. The look on its face, its posture, its eyes, those damned eyes were so human-like I could read this creature's emotions. It was fully amused while equally curious as to why a thin-skinned and squishy creature such as a human would actually walk right up to it on purpose. Sounds like the failure part of natural selection. I turned the key to start my truck, put it in drive, and gently pushed the gas pedal. I knew it wasn't going to hurt me. Mock me? Yes. Hurt me? No. Right. As I started driving away, movement in my rearview mirror caught my eye. The wolf had turned and started walking back into the field on his two hind legs. There are many different interpretations as to what the Dogman is. Here are the most popular ones, in no particular order. One explanation for the Dogman is that it is a hybrid of a canine and a human, created through genetic engineering or experimentation. While this explanation may be unlikely, it is possible that humans have tampered with genetic material in the past, and the result of this could be the Dogman. And that's my personal favorite. I know, I'm twisted. Another is that the Dogman is a cryptid, a species of animal that is not yet recognized by science. Cryptozoologists believe that there could be a variety of unknown species living in various parts of the world, and the Dogman could very easily be one of them. This would explain why there have been sightings of the Dogman in various random locations, and why people have been unable to identify the species. I like that one too, not as much. Another could be the misidentification of a known species. For instance, some reports could be of a large, unusual-looking wolf, or a fox that has been mistaken for a large dog. Or it could simply be a very large wolf, coyote, or domestic dog. Additionally, some sightings could be that of a large black bear, which could explain why some people have reported the creature as being canine-like. Meh, that one sucks. Another logical explanation for the Dogman could be an unknown species of canine-like creature. Reports of the creature have been around since the late 1800s, suggesting that it could be a hybrid of a dog and a different species, like a coyote or a wolf. Alternatively, it could be an odd mutation of a known species, like a black wolf, I guess. The Dogman has become a legend throughout the world. People from all over the globe have tried to catch a glimpse of him, and some local communities have embraced the mysterious creature as a symbol of their culture. That would be Michigan and Wisconsin. Sightings of the Dogman have become more and more frequent, and the legend of his existence has only grown in popularity. He has become the subject of countless stories, films, and artwork. Even though the Dogman's true identity remains a mystery, the impact that he has had on people everywhere is undeniable. He has become a symbol of fear and dread, and a reminder that the most obscure creatures can bring utter terror and destruction to those who are unlucky enough to encounter them.